Okay, so now I'm going to tell you, as your philosophical companion and learning coach, how I think you should approach the reading. You should have or should be doing a tutorial as soon as you register your link to access what you see in front of you. Notice that week 2, task 1A tells you what pages to focus on, and then week 2, task 1B that is the link to the assignment. It's also the link that you use to register your access code. Once you have clicked on the link to register your code, you will get access to your first assignment. You'll see a page before this one that will have like a list of assignments. You'll probably only see one. And once you click on the link that is for this specific week's Learn Smart assignment, you're going to see something like this. Now, usually the way that this starts out is, as you can see, there's stuff that looks like it's not viewable, like it's light, right? You can barely see it. And so the idea with the way that the publishers have come up with this task is they decide what they think you should read first. Okay, so I'll just use this in a case in point. This is not really an interruption. Well, it is and it isn't. So you'll see that here's where we see the first text that is more visible. It's dark. So what the publisher is suggesting is that you read this paragraph first, and then they highlight this as the most important part to read. And then of course it will tell you at some point, if you've had the reading open for a while, to go ahead and answer some questions, and it'll tell you how to initiate those questions. Now, the problem with that is that you don't get the context of what you're reading. So why am I even reading what's in this paragraph? Well, the paragraphs before might help you to understand why you're reading this paragraph at all. So that's one thing that I don't like. And I think there's pros and cons to their approach and my approach. Now, if you want to use their way of doing it, that's fine. But I'm strongly encouraging you to, after you've read the paragraphs that are in dark black and highlighted, after you've done all that, after you've answered all the questions and the prompts, that you go back to the very beginning of the reading and read it all in its entirety. Now, what you can do if you want to go ahead and read the entire thing from the beginning, or at least read read the whole thing as you go, is you just get your mouse and you just click on the text that's light gray. And like that, you can start reading from the beginning and get the context of those paragraphs that it otherwise tells you to begin with, and then in some parts of said paragraphs, highlights in yellow. See, the problem is if you only focus on the paragraphs highlighted for you and made more readable for you by the publisher in the Smart Book, is that you're not going to see the forest. You'll get the trees and you'll understand various points, but without doing the whole reading, you're not going to see how the different elements of the reading connect together. You're not going to see the forest for the trees. So be careful with using the default approach to the Learn Smart task, which is to have you zoom in on paragraphs in super readable black font with highlights. Like I said, if you want to go that way, you can do that, answer all the questions and prompts, and then go back and make sure you read all the other paragraphs, including the ones that you already read. So reading those twice, so that's pretty cool. I like to get a sense of the forest before I zone in on the trees. So I'm more inclined to do the reading, and then you can always, just read for fun, read for understanding, think of it as a warm-up before you exercise. Even if as you're reading, that prompt that you just saw comes up and says, hey, you haven't answered any questions. Would you like to answer some? You can say no. If you want to do all of the reading first to get the big picture and just soak it in, no stress, not worrying about the questions or the prompts, you can do that. And you can just tell that avatar that came up, like, no, I'm not going to answer any questions, because maybe in your mind, you first want to read everything. So so far I've covered two approaches. There's a third. So one is focus in on the paragraphs and the highlights, answer the questions as prompted when prompted by the default approach from the publisher, then go back and read everything that you didn't read the first time to get the whole picture. The second approach is to do all of the reading first, ignoring the prompt to answer any questions, and then go back after you've done the whole reading, after you've gotten the forest, go back and then look at the trees by going ahead and doing what they call practice questions, which I think that, don't get me started on that. I think labeling what they're calling practice questions doesn't make any sense at all. But there's a third approach, which is you can, as I did here, go ahead and read, and then it should be, yeah, so everything is now highlighted. So you can see everything is, you can see it, right? It's not faded anymore. So then the third option is, again, to click on the light gray area at the very beginning of the reading and read, and then go ahead and answer questions as you're prompted to, knowing that you're going to be reading everything as you go and not merely focusing on what they say. Now, I do stress that you really do not need to read the stuff in the purple boxes, and you do not need to read the stuff that is in the, I guess you could say, peach rust colored boxes. Not quite sure how to name that color and shade. You also don't need to worry about stuff that you see. Let me find another picture. I want to show you something else that you do not need to read. And by skipping the stuff in the text boxes, you're going to save yourself some time and some pages. You can reduce the reading as much as 20 to 30% if you skip that stuff. Some other stuff, but there's one more thing that I want to show you that you can skip in these readings. Let me find an example. Sorry, my cursor is moving super slow, or SmartBook's being super slow. Let's see if I can find it here. All right, let's see if we can find what, okay. So right here, anything that you see that says like from and then a philosopher and then there's a book name, you see this icon, you see blue lines around the original text, you can skip that stuff. If I want you to look at original text, we're going to look at it together. The author does a pretty good job setting up original text or helping you to understand it. He doesn't do a close analysis. He does mostly big ideas. If I really want us to get into an original text, we're going to do it together. And if we do it, we're going to go deeper or possibly broader than the author of your book does. So again, I've just given you 3 approaches to completing this assignment or Learn Smart assignments. After this one, you will do 3 more. I've told you what you can skip and how doing so can save you time. And I've told you how and whether, we will focus in on original text. Of course, if you want, of course, I encourage you to read the original text. What you see in the blue lines is what the philosophers themselves said in their own words or as translated by others. So keep that in mind as well. And as I said in another video, remember, don't think of this as just reading. This is your primary learning source. And so I want you to think of the reading as lessons or lectures that I myself would word exactly as is worded in the reading. I've chosen this because I think it's very digestible, this book, and everything that it has to say. So again, have a sense of curiosity, wonder what you're going to learn, and you might find yourself having a much more enjoyable experience.